tendency to do that. So without sounding too dry with all this stuff, and we'll be looking at it more in detail, it seems that the whole nature of reality is something completely different to what Einsteinian mechanics and quantum mechanics has demonstrated over the years. And that, in fact, the shamanic experience, the psychedelic experience, the entheogenic experience, the genuine transformative experiences are far more than hallucinations, but are, in fact, glimmers of other realities that are very much part of the invariant laws of biology. Now, invariance, fabulous concept. Invariance has never been practiced by Einstein in describing biological systems. And quantum mechanics can't even describe living biological systems. It can only describe human beings as dead crystals, because it deals with single potentials. So we think through the Human Genome Project that we're very far with genetics, but actually real mathematical modeling of living DNA, we're still far, far away from it. However, hypermathematics introduced by hadronic mechanics, hyperrelativity introduced by hadronic mechanics, hyperbiology introduced by hadronic mechanics starts to pave an objective, empirical way to do that. The implications, however, if a molecule is bounded together by a force that is hyperdimensional, if you take it in Newtonian physics and hadronic mechanics, each of the 8 dimensions of the Octonian vector space dimensions are iso-lifted, they have iso-self-duals and so forth and so on. So you have 7 dimensions on a hypersphere. It's an 8-dimensional Octonian, which is part of a string of 8 dimensions. 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, very binomial, Sierpinski-like cascades of dimensionality, which Professor Rowlands at the University of London has been modeling DNA on as well, using hadronic mechanics. So when you've got a force that is present multidimensionally, and at the same time in our dimension is in the heart of every atom of the universe at the same time and totally, and past, present and future, it makes a molecule magic. A molecule is no longer a dead crystal. It's impossible to see it that way. Well, those who do perhaps put a slight static charge on it, and those who believe in that, and we do subconsciously believe in that through social spin programming, that molecules are dead things, chemists in lab coats, and we took chemistry at school and fell asleep and maybe had a bit of fun with the pops and bangs that we could steer together and other naughty things we could contrive. When we have a force that is multidimensional behind molecules, this is very, very significant. And when a force emerges out of the atom from the hadronic domain, where three-dimensionality collapses, that becomes of central interest. Since the ayahuasca harmaline molecule, also in the soma plant, also in small amounts in Tribulus terrestris and other plants, as well as in our pineal glands when we dream, primarily as pinoline, has this nuclear magnetic resonation of 8 cycles per second, which emerges out of the hadron proton well within the hadronic horizon. And since it is the central frequency of life that tunes the DNA and causes the DNA to replicate, that is the organizing synchronization of all the organs of the body, bingo, we're looking at something with new insight through hadronic mechanics. The multidimensional experiences, the dilations of time, the déjà vus, the hyperspatial vantage points that are glanced and gleaned through the entheogenesis, through the apotheosis of the ayahuasca and other entheogenic states, are interactions between our electrical body self with this hadronic horizon. Hadronic mechanics then has an interaction of electrons, which are 10 to the minus 9 of a centimeter, and are operated by quantum mechanics. The electrons with the protons, and when they couple together by the hadronic reactor or by other conditions, which may very well be applying in our physical body. Another thing we'd like to speak about from the domain of genomics, the human genome mapping, is that Dr. Paul Davies and others have shown that the human race has 223 bona fide extraterrestrial genes that do not exist in chimpanzees, that do not exist in any other primate of this planet. So certified extraterrestrial genes. And these 223 genes comprise up to 70% of the active genes that are used in the human body template. So it's a significant portion of our beingness, and is what makes us different. However, many of these 223 genes also appear to switch on in psychedelic studies, in studies with people who've had near-death experiences. So people who've had car accidents, bicycle accidents, motorbike accidents, and who've been through the so-called tunnel of light and have been coming back to life, a percentage of those people are also having developed certain side effects. This residual side effects include things like deja vu or healing, or having telekinesis, or having an ability to see events that are going to happen for certain people, different forms of psi or extrasensory perception. These also have been shown by Dr. Keller, who has been studying genetic changes, to the people who have undergone near-death experiences and who have the residual ESP or extrasensory perception phenomena or side effects, also appear to have undergone genetic changes. That some of these 223 genes that are not yet active in mankind as a whole become active through what is called floating DNA or retrotransposons, especially human endogenous retrovirus, but also SINEs and several other retrotransposons. Retrotransposons are jumping DNA. They are able to switch on genetic codes by jumping across chromosomes and create fast sweeping changes in the body very quickly. In other words, in 24 hours, retrotransposons can create cancer, and this has been very well documented all over the world. Unfortunately, in the public domain, it's always focused on disease. Dr. Keller, knowing and having been part of those studies, including triple helixes in cancer, also chose to look the other way, to look into what is happening with people who've had near-death experiences or psychedelic experiences. So when people have a near-death experience, some people get it through perhaps a very strong ayahuasca jolt or an LSD jolt, but not everybody. Some people might get it in a UFO sighting. So there are clear markers when people have had unidentified flying objects or close encounters of the third, fourth, perhaps fifth kinds, but third and fourth kinds primarily, where there is a genetic change in terms of floating DNA. There's a change in brain rhythm as well. It seems that, of course, repeated shamanic dosing gradually brings a person to activate these aspects of themselves. Very exciting work done by the Hefner Association with lysergic acid diethylamide 25. Primarily, it's the first genetic markers that have shown that LSD 25 actually switches on 11